Welcome everybody to the Suboptimal podcast. Before we start, I have my shades cracked open a little bit, and there's like two birds flying around. I saw a little baby bunny just dart through the yard at the birds and then fly back towards the house, and it just like all caught out of the corner of my eye, and now the birds are freaking out. So that was an interesting flash of fur and feathers. But yeah, this is the Suboptimal podcast. We talk about WoW and WoW things. I'm joined by my co-host Hakkd, who has been here for the last 3 episodes, and we have special guest Lost Colony, aka Bay. He is a current Mistweaver in our guild Might. Also plays a nasty warlock. Gets confused for other people named Bay who also play WoW when he just happens to be in a random pug with automatic jack. But I'll let him introduce himself a little bit here, say anything he wants to say before we get started.
Yeah, first I'd like to say hi, Amy. I know she's here for a week.
Yeah, she won't watch me, but she'll tune in for you.
She sees you all the time.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, no. So I'm Bay. I like Rain said, I'm a warlock main, but I also heal as a Mistweaver in raids. I'm a security engineer by day, and then I come home and do a bunch of nerd shit later on.
So not so much different than the by the day part.
No, it's really not. No.
Yeah.
Nerd all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figure that's kind of what we do, right? But yeah, well, I've been here for how long now, Hakkd? A couple years? 2 years? Something like that? That's when I saw your stream and came over to Might.
Yep.
And yeah, I've been doing this ever since.
Sweet. Nerds. So today's podcast, we're going to talk, now that the class trees for Evoker have been out for a minute, talk about some of our thoughts about the general class design. We're not really going to go into actual talent builds, but kind of their viability in raid, some of the issues we see. Do they have a guaranteed spot in high-end content that like their utility you must bring with? Or are they going to be kind of a flex class like a shaman has kind of been in high-end content for a little bit, or I guess this expansion. So to kick it off, I guess the first and the biggest issue for me is, and I've got the preservation tree pulled up because I think it's more of an issue with healer, but it's their 25-yard range. I think it's just a little odd that they're going to be the only healing class that has a 25-yard range. Kind of puts them in an odd position. They're probably going to be classified by raid mechanics as a caster, so they would theoretically have to stack with the range stack, and would then, kind of put them out of range for melee healing when mechanics go off. So
yeah, but I also wouldn't say that that's. I mean, a monk is a caster. Pally is still, you would classify them as casters.
Yeah,
but they still have a lot of melee mechanics.
For the purposes of mechanics, we just deal with melee, like as a monk, for example.
But I mean, I will say it makes more sense for monk and paladin, just like the way their kit works.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and I think like there are similarities between the 3 healers, just from a damage perspective, right? Because I think evokers are going to be expected to do damage just through the normal course of a raid or a mythic plus or whatever.
Especially just the flyby shit, right?
Well, the flyby shit, plus there are a couple of talents. I know we're not going to go into specific builds or anything, but I figure we'll talk about actual talent points themselves.
Yeah.
Where if you select them, like you'll just, by virtue of casting certain spells, cleave damage or healing onto, your party or to other mobs and things like that. Which is interesting. I think about what it would feel like to be sort of constrained to a 25-yard range on a fight like Halandris. Because as a monk, right, like my main legendary, Ancient Teachings of the Monastery, has a 20-yard range. And when we're all super spread out on Halandris, like healing can be a bit of a bear because that's one of my biggest healing spells is a totem. So it's, I think, going to be super awkward at first to sort of get used to the 25-yard range. And you're going to have to really be cognizant of where everybody is, right? I don't know if it's going to make more sense for people to just always be stacked in groups with one range group and a melee group. But if everybody's spread, it's going to, I think cause a lot of real problems for throughput for evokers, healing evokers.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be a fight specific thing.
Yeah, oh for sure.
Yeah, to your point about like paladin and monk both standing in melee and being flagged as melee, like I get it, and that's perfectly fine, but like they still have a 40-yard range. Like their heals still do go 40 yards. So if you're just playing preservation and standing in melee, you're probably not healing your ranged. Or
Right.
You
So
know.
that's not what I'm getting at, though. So what I'm getting at is you can be flagged as a melee. That doesn't mean you need to be in melee.
Right.
It just means that you're not going to get targeted with ranged mechanics to where you would want that person that gets targeted by that to be 40 yards back.
Yeah.
Like they can still play in their little midfield area as long as they're flagged as melee. That way you don't have a ranged puddle that only spawns on them in the middle of the groups. Like I'm just thinking of like Artificer, of like, oh well, there's our traps right in the middle of fucking everything.
Well, I also think it will be awkward because like say, you know, you go to put down your Emerald Bloom, which is kind of like Healing Rain or Mushroom for Druid or whatever. So like you either put it on the melee or you put it on the ranged. Like you're never going to be standing in it yourself, and you're never going to stand in an Efflorescence or a Healing Rain that's put in either of those camps either, because you're going to want to stand in between. And like, so you're probably not going to be a chain heal target if you're playing with a shaman. Like it's just going to make it kind of weird because you'll be just standing on your own for most of every fight.
I think outside of just the fact that you can't be at ranged, I think the rest of it, I think you have a lot of fluidity and flexibility on like your positioning where you can stand. You don't have to be at 25 yards. You just can't be past it.
Right.
And I think that's like the major breaking point. But as long as you're flagged as a melee, I think that's less restraining than it would be for the healers that are flagged as ranged.
I don't think we for sure know yet, but I would wager that they're flagged as ranged.
That'd be my guess as well.
Yeah. That's would also be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, Blizzard has called them mid-ranged casters. So like I would imagine they're going to get the caster and ranged flag.
Yeah, and just from what I've seen on, you know, alpha streams and stuff, most of the healing evokers are up in melee anyway, but they're going to be flagged as ranged, which is really going to, you know, play hell with raid mechanics and stuff too.
Yeah. I feel like they're just going to be forced through iteration to flag them as melee, because I think that's the only thing that works without really neutering what they can do with encounter design.
I think what they're going to do is just extend their range for like their healing spells, not necessarily for their empowered spells like the healing breath or whatever, right? But they're going to extend all that to 40 yards, I think is what's going to happen.
I could see that. Certain spells are 40-yard range, and then...
Yeah, so like Living Flame, Echo, those spells are going to be 40 yards, and we'll just call it good. You hang out with the ranged camp. And
even then, I just envision the moment where it's like, this got baited on one of our evokers that was in their mid-range trying to use their empowered thing. Yeah. I'm gonna hear, I was trying to do my breath. I'm like, I don't fucking care. Get back to 40 yards.
Yeah.
Right.
I told you the bait mechanic was coming. Whatever.
Yeah, and the breath is kind of weird because I think it's like a 90-degree cone in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy if you're going to extend that out to 40 yards. I don't think if you're going to extend it to 40 yards, it can be a full 90-degree cone. They would have to cut it back to 60 or 45 or something and then extend the range on that.
Yeah, because otherwise you cover a quarter of the room. Like
the entire room, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, which is just fucking insane. So
yeah.
They can't do that. But they'll have to extend the range or classify them as melee, I think.
Without talking about some of the other issues I have with kind of the design, do you think in higher end heroic or in world first, and set tuning aside when we're having this conversation, like if they're crazy tuned, like people will make it work, like because they're just so good, right? And these issues become non-issues if they're just absolutely insane.
Look at Venthyr Boomkins in the Race of World First, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't ideal to play that way, and it was way harder to play than Night Fae. But the World First Raiders were, you know, at least giving it a shot. They're much more squishy than they were if they were Night Fae, but they tried it because it gave them a certain edge over the other Covenants.
Right.
That kind of goes into my same point from last week talking about Mythic Plus and the meta. Like, that's the best players will play around it and abuse it if it's that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think, tuning aside, would this be like something that higher end heroic groups ask a healer to swap on certain fights, or that just kind of keeps them maybe not used, or like you only bring one evoker, you're either bringing a preservation or a devastation, you're not bringing both? Do you think that this is such an issue that it would kind of put them in that spot?
I don't think so. I think it's only going to matter
heroic
in World First Mythic.
Yeah,
exactly.
Even later Mythic,
raid comp doesn't matter in any place but World Top 100.
Yeah,
maybe top 100.
Maybe top 100. Right,
yeah.
Right.
Top 20, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. Because after that, like your gear starts to catch up more. Fights get nerfed, right? Things like that. Everything's going to change after the World First 10, 15, 20.
I will say, to your question though, Rain, will that be a thing? Definitely. Not because it needs to, but because people are dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, people think that these comps have to be perfect, and it's like, dude, it's like week 10 and we're in heroic. Like, this shit does not matter. We can make it work.
I guess that was,
yes, it will happen.
Right.
But the same can be said with fucking anything. I mean, it happens all over the game, and it's just because people don't understand.
I guess, to rephrase my question, is Blizzard creating another community perception problem accidentally that they don't have to create? You know,
even if they didn't, it would happen.
Because like, I don't think 25 yards or 40 yards messes with the class fantasy of being a dragon. Like, besides to Bay's point, like the empowered breaths and stuff make more sense to be like short range, like type spells, but like your non-breaths and stuff, I don't know why 40 yards would be a problem.
Well, and I do think that it's a cool thing. It just, the only problem that stands with the range difference is how does it mess with it encounter design how it is now.
Right.
Like, that's it. So it just, there needs to be a change in encounter design for that to really work, because if you think about it, BM Hunter should be the same. If that's the case, if we're introducing this as like okay, there's now a mid-range thing, like BM fits perfectly with that. You have marksman back at 40 plus yards, and BM is like mid-range. Because BM, I always imagine you just hollering at your pet from 40 yards back.
Like, hey, go bite him.
Your pet can definitely hear you better from 25 yards.
Your pet's looking around like, I can't hear you. Like,
what?
Yeah. So kind of a extension of this, not really the range issue, and it is a specific thing for preservation, but a certain spec in preservation ties quite a bit of healing to this class talent, rescue. And this is really your only like dash that you get as Evoker. You don't have like you have hover, which hover is absolutely busted, by the way. It just lets you cast all your spells while moving, except your empower spells. You can extend it by like 8 seconds, and you can also add a sprint to it if you want to. So like hover is busted, and like tip the scales, or I'm sorry, not tip the scales. Time spiral like lets you just insta cast it off of cooldown. Like, so like
you get 3 of those back to back to back.
But it's not really a sprint in the traditional sense. It's not a dash. So your only real like dash and sprint is rescue. And when you're playing preservation, you can tie a bunch of additional healing to it. And if they are at 25 yards, like when mechanics happen, theoretically you'd want to be dashing out, but then you're kind of stuck in one or the other camps, not at your optimal range. So then do you use fly with me and drag a ranged with you to get back, or you just say fuck one of your melees and drag them out to 25 yards? Like, that's
already a thing. Because think about Demon Hunter. They have their Fell Rush as their only like real. I mean, it's the same thing, really.
I don't think my issue is
they have a talent that ties damage to that.
My issue isn't that
you're using it for damage.
My issue is not that the healing is tied to it per se. It's that the healing is so strong and you have a range problem.
I mean, both of those things can be said for the Demon Hunter, and
well, you're usually dashing through the hitbox and then meleeing on the other side. You're not dashing yourself out of melee range. I mean, some Demon Hunters do, and it's not good. But like, you're potentially like dashing yourself.
But also, just the point of the healing is so strong. The damage is so strong. Have you seen
that's true. Momentum
the amount of damage that talent does?
That's true. That's true. It's more of a like you're if you have to push rescue on cooldown, it like you can't rescue back in. Like if you wanted to bounce between both camps, you can't do it.
That's different. Healers almost never have to do like a heal on cooldown. That's not a thing. Like,
sure.
I don't think that it's an issue just because of that. Like, everything is always planned as far as cooldowns go. Like, if it's not needed, you could let it sit on cooldown for the entire fight if you never need it.
True.
So I don't think that it's an issue, like, because it's a heal. Like, you could just not use it. You could just not talent into it because,
I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be an optimal build. I think it's actually a better talent for Devastation because it's your dash and you just get bonus healing to an ally. So I actually think
I mean, if you do talent into it, by all means, that still doesn't mean that you have to use it. You know what I mean? Just because of the way healing works and your cooldowns and just how your buttons work on a healer, like it doesn't work that way.
I think
you know what I mean?
With current tuning and the bonuses to it, it makes it like your strongest button in your toolkit.
That's fine. Yeah. But what I mean is, even as a healer, I'll go an entire dungeon without ever pressing my strongest button because
you don't need
it.
Yeah.
And and that's okay. Like that is 100% fine.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's an issue from a healing perspective.
I just don't love it because I just don't like the ability that I can't dash back into melee with it. If like all my ranged are topped off, but somebody needs a big heal in melee, and now I can't rescue. Like I have to hover to them so I can still heal, get to 25 yards, and then rescue to them. And by that time, they're probably it's like 3 or 4 globals worth of time, and they're probably dead potentially. Yeah. So like
but is that enough healing to warrant all of that headache when you could just cast like your main targeted heal on them?
You can't.
And
you're outside of 25 yards. You can't do anything to the range. Their melee.
I mean, it depends if you're where you have to be camped based on positioning for the encounter. Because if you're standing mid range, you could hit them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you dash back to your range, and then you can't dash back towards your melee. You have to kind of make your way.
That's going to be a very, very, very encounter specific thing. Like if there is no positioning requirement, you're not going to be in melee. You're going to be like hanging out at 20 yards. Yeah. And if you're hanging out at 20 yards, you can hit the melee and you can hit the ranged without moving.
Right.
So I think that that's going to be a very fight specific thing. And that's just, it'll turn into, well, I'm just not healing the ranged on this fight because like I'm tied to melee, or I'm not healing the melee on this fight because I'm tied to ranged because of the way the encounter is designed. But I don't think that that's always going to be a thing.
I don't think it's always a problem. I don't love the design. I could see it being reworked or just give us 40 yards and I think it'll be fine.
I think it will be. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
and
as
I
long
also
as your
think
healing isn't tied to damage, right? Like,
yeah,
it's fine. Some of it is a little bit depending on which talents you take.
I also think
like
that maybe it's a cool design. Like, I think
like why can't it
be? Well, why can't it be like changing the way you play entirely depending on the position that you have to take for an encounter? Like, I think that adds another layer, and this is gonna be a hard class to play, both specs. Like, it's all new, so I don't know that that's bad. That you have to actually think and play your class completely different based on the encounter, because I mean, some specs have to do that, like they have to play a little different, but
yeah, I guess if I didn't want to think, I just go play warrior.
Right. So I think it adds another layer that might be cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Since it's supposed to be challenging anyway, right?
Yeah. So I guess that's probably enough blabbering about 25-yard range and my issues with it. So
it'll come up later, I'm sure.
Yeah. with that said, I don't think that it's going to prevent people from using. I think they're going to be tuned in a way that like you're going to want to bring them. And to kind of talk about other reasons why, I think they have some of the best and coolest cooldowns and utility in the game. They're actual like personal sucks. Like you probably shouldn't ever use this because Obsidian Scales is awful.
It is crap, but they also don't have a ton of other personal defensive utility, right?
Yeah,
like,
from a like lore standpoint, it's really cool. Like your scales like get crazy, but like 200% armor. All right, well, there's not a whole lot of physical damage. Like it'll be situational.
And I mean, again, it depends on the encounter design, because I mean, there's been expansions or patches where it's like there's a lot of physical damage going on, or there's a lot of magical damage going on.
Well, in a raid,
I think having such a like this personal is only good for physical is kind of crap. But
I mean, how good is it even for physical? Like, how much armor are we going to have as evokers, and then doubling it or
mail?
You know,
I mean, you are wearing mail,
so a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, a decent bit at least. Enough to where 200% is a lot.
Is it going to be significant, you think?
I would like to see them reduce it to 100% and then double the magic damage taken to 40%, and then it would be an awesome button.
Well, so does it have some magic damage?
20%. Yeah.
That's that's awesome.
On a 2.5 minute cooldown.
Well, that's
you can
shit.
talent into getting it 60 seconds less than that.
Yeah,
so
but like,
a minute and a half.
Okay, so that's.
I don't think it's good enough to warrant the point.
I think that's happening kind of across the board. Like, I might be wrong, but I think the shaman tree has something like astral shift as a longer cooldown, and you have to talent into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, so I think that's going to be across the board. So
yeah.
I mean, if that just based on the build that everybody plays, you have a minute and a half, 200% armor and 20% magic damage reduction. That's a fine personal.
Yeah, I mean, in the first raid that's all about the elements, I doubt there's going to be a lot of physical that we like, you know, like 20%.
That's
weaker than every other personal in the game.
I don't know about that.
I think it is.
I'd be fine if they just made it a flat damage reduction, like a 30% DR or something.
Like, yeah.
Like, I don't see why we need to have it split between
right.
increasing your armor and then decreasing your magic damage taken.
But anyway, so I don't like that personal.
No, I mean, I agree with that. You're just adding too many words to it. Why don't you just say 30% across the board? Call it good.
They do have some crazy utility though. Cauterizing Flame removes all bleed, poison, curse, disease effects on a 1 minute cooldown, and then heals them for 350% spell power. So like this,
I saw you post that, and I think that's kind of cool for a 1 minute cooldown.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, assuming you remove something. Good. If you don't, I assume it won't do anything at all, and you'll just have wasted a CD.
But the other part is it's not just it removes all of them. So like all the stacks and multiple effects at once.
Oh.
So like it's just unbelievable. Like
so it's basically a better revival on
a 1 minute
cooldown.
Yeah. I mean, it's only for single target,
but yeah.
Quell is cool because you can get it as a healer as well for your interrupt. It is on a 40-second colddown.
Can be talented to 20 though.
In the devastation tree, you can talent it to 20, and it can be a generator for you for generating essence when you interrupt. So actually probably worth to take on healer as well for fights that have mechanics that you can interrupt. Tip the scales. So it's just a personal that lets your empower cast at maximum empower instantly. So it's a throughput button. Sleepwalk will be situational and PvP based. This though, source of magic. So this is essentially Innervate that's beacon for Pally. So you basically put your beacon, or in this case source of magic, on a friendly healer, and then every time you cast an empowered spell, you restore 0.5% of their max mana per empower level.
Yep. Yeah, you're gonna have healers fighting over that like we fight over Innervate right now.
So,
but also their empower spells are like decent cooldown, right? Those aren't like
there's
crazy.
there's a build for preservation where I believe you're casting 4 empowered spells a minute at
That's
rank
still 2% mana
at rank
per minute.
5
15 seconds.
at rank 5. So
Yeah.
you get 2.5% magic or mana back every 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's pretty significant.
And then you can bring
per empower level, right, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
if you
I wasn't
talent into it,
factoring
it's extra
that
level.
bit in. Yeah.
I think
Okay.
I think the math works
Okay,
out
that's a lot.
on average to get like 8% mana back a minute, which is insane.
Yeah, that's rough.
And for
that's a lot.
it's not even like you have to like ask for it, I guess, like innervate, or like your druid forgets to innervate you. Like this is just passive. Like the whole
30-minute cooldown that you just leave on somebody. It's just a buff.
Yep.
But also, where is that in the tree? Is that at the top of the triangle?
No, it's,
middle class
no.
tree. Here,
Right
let me.
above
Oh,
the
sorry.
20 required.
I'll zoom it in a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hey, here's something I don't know about Evoker.
Oh, you can skip past that easy. Nobody's gonna take that shit.
Everybody's gonna take it.
Everybody's
No. People are gonna get forced into taking it, but nobody's gonna want to take it.
I mean, it's like fucking priests getting forced to use PI on somebody else instead of themselves.
Right.
But do we know what kind of mana usage Evokers use right now, or are they only focused on essence usage?
I think the majority of their big heals come from essence.
I think it'll likely be a lot like Pally, where you're using mana to generate, and then you're spending your big stuff on essence.
I mean, you're
like mana versus holy power.
Your essence spenders also cost mana, so.
Oh well, never mind then.
But I mean, it's not a lot. It's like Spirit Bloom's 3.8% of your base. It's like it's not super expensive.
Right.
But this talent right here would be the only reason that like you may want to bring 2 evokers, like a damage and a healing evoker, because then you can put this on 2 healers, or like your damage evoker can put it on your healing evoker, and then your healing evoker can put it on one of your other healers.
Mm-hmm.
And
also, I will say I don't think that'll be an issue right away, because these things are gonna be so fucking fodom. You're gonna have plenty of evokers to spread them across all your
yeah, especially early in the expansion, they're gonna be everywhere.
Yeah.
Though I'm gonna sidebar us real quick. I love the talent tree that like you don't take this in Mythic Plus, right? Because you're the only healer. Or you're probably not taking it as a damage evoker in Mythic Plus because mana's not really an issue. So like I just love that you can just untalent this and just put the point somewhere else into something you want to use.
Right.
So just a little sidebar, like I think what Blizzard's doing with the split talent trees is awesome, because we haven't really talked about it much on here. We haven't talked about the talent trees really at all, and I love this system. Granted,
I love that it's getting more complex, right? Like I miss the
definitely.
Wrath of the Lich King, Burning Crusade style talent trees.
Well, and not even is it getting more complex, is that it can be, because the complexity from everywhere else in the game, from like this system, that system, and this system all working together all at once, you just pump it all into this one thing. Boom. That's when you can add the complexity to the base game, which is awesome.
And I think we've seen it's much easier for them to balance, because if you've followed like the blue posts and stuff, like the hunter tree has already had a ton of changes because it was in such a bad spot when it released. And like,
well, and you can just like move nodes around or add one little connection to things, and you can. I mean, I was looking at some of the trees though. I'm like, shit, I can't like skip this and then go back up, even though they're connected. I'm like, that sucks.
Right.
Yeah, it's gotta start from the top.
My only gripe with that is that it's not super apparent that you can't do that, but I guess it probably doesn't have to be. If you try it in the game, you can just reset your shit. So
yeah, it would be nice if they just added a little arrow that shows the direction you're moving.
Right.
You know?
So that's the one thing I got super excited. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I could do this, and then I could just go up because I could skip that shit. I'm like, fuck, I can't.
I actually got really confused with this tree when I first started messing with it, because like it's 8 required to get to tip the scales, but there's nothing connecting from the top. So I was like, wait, how do you get tip the scales? And then I was like, oh, it just starts like another tree in the middle. Like,
really?
Yeah, you just rip that thing raw. Like you don't need anything connected to it.
Okay, so actually that's, now that I think about what I literally just said, that makes sense, because I was actually still thinking, oh, you have to go up to it, so you would have to
No.
get the nodes to the left or the right below it.
No. That once you have
Okay.
8, you can
You
start
can
here.
just rip this thing raw.
So yeah, after Source of Magic, which this might be like one of the best just utility in the game. Unravel, gonna be cool for very situational, but cool for things like Desausage, and it's just a 500% base spell power to shield. So probably be taking that on shield fights.
That would be a fight by fight basis.
Yeah, sure. It's a branch, like a leaf talent, so like it's not dependent. You don't have to take it to get anywhere else, and it's a 1-pointer, so like really cool. Oppressing Roar, it just removes 1 enrage effect, and then its leaf talent is for every enrage effect you remove, it reduces the cooldown by 20 seconds. This is going to be huge on raging weeks for Mythic Plus because it's an AoE enrage dispel.
Yep.
It also increases the duration of crowd control effects on the mobs by 50%. So in PvP,
Dude,
imagine like you
Yeah.
kidney and then you oppressing roar the kidney and you get like a 9.5 second kidney.
Yeah, it's a long kidney shot.
Wait,
Yeah.
so does it like put a crowd controls on them by 50% for the next 10 seconds? So would it need to go up first?
I think you have to cast that first, then
Yeah, they
cast
would have
Minion.
to have the debuff
Mhm.
and then.
Yeah. But it still
Yeah.
creates.
Also,
Oh my
order matters,
god, man!
Yeah. It's
Or
still
you fucking pop that shit on a healer, poly him for fucking
Exactly, forever.
oh,
Fucking
15 seconds. Jesus.
Yeah. This is going to be absolutely busted in PvP.
Yeah, I can see them changing it to be like only works in PvE or
Yeah, but then that's shit, right? Like you
They've
just
done it before
never...
though, dude. Like that's
right, they would.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's hold off on Fly with me for a second. Time Spiral. This is going to be situationally strong. So what this does is it allows you and your allies, only within a 25-yard range, to cast their main major movement ability, even if it's on cooldown in the next 10 seconds. Yeah. So there's a list that somebody's put together of the abilities that it affects. It's basically like Horse for Paladin. It's really shitty for Warlock because it's just
super shitty. It's our personal teleport.
The personal teleport. It's not
Which
even
is already
gate.
on like a short cooldown anyway.
So nothing for Shaman.
It's
I'm just trying to think. Like...
It's Spirit Walker's Grace.
Oh well.
It's super strong.
Heroically warriors.
Yeah, which is garbage. But it's a great personal because it lets you cast Hover again for Evoker. So you get your like best cooldown reset even if it's on cooldown, and this is only on a 2-minute. So definitely situational, but could be very strong depending on the fight. Mm-hmm. Zephyr basically gives you a feint, like a 20% feint, and increases movement speed, but it's just for your party.
Yep. It's not raid wide, which is interesting. I think what you're gonna have to do if you end up taking that, like if Zephyr's the play, you're gonna have you and your 4 squishiest, like in the same party with you.
Yep.
I don't think there's really any other use case for it.
Which I think that's
increase is nice.
I think that's kind of cool too, because like you could potentially like that would change per fight, so it'll give like you a reason to change like your groups depending on the fight and who you want to reduce area of effect on. So like this could be awesome on like you look at like Sludge Fist when the Pillar Slam goes off. Like you throw this on your Holy Pallies, your non-fire mages, and then you Zephyr them and give them a 20% AoE damage reduction.
Is that OP that it can't just be raid wide though?
It's not that OP, which I don't know why it wouldn't be
raid wide. Yeah, that should just be raid wide. That's too much shit. For an ability like that just needs to be raid wide.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you take that and then you look at something like Rewind over, I'm probably getting ahead of ourselves here, but if you look at Rewind over in the Preservation tree, that's raid wide.
Right.
And that's a huge cooldown. So
we'll get there.
Yeah. That one being party wide, that's stupid.
Yeah, it'd be cool in Mythic Plus, I guess, but
it would be good in Mythic Plus. Right.
Rating is just gonna
maybe that's what it's for. Like So I would see AoE effects getting reduced. Like, I think that's way more prevalent in Mythic Plus, at least within like the last couple of patches we've had.
Sure, but compared to other DRs like Diva Aura, right?
Right.
That's raid wide, and it should be. And
Exactly.
I also think that Zephyr should be raid wide.
Well, and like the nice thing with this though is like you're gonna take it fight specific. Like if there's not a big AoE slam, you don't need to take it, and you don't need it. And then if there is, you take it and you put your squishy members with your evoker.
Right, unless you really need the speed increase or something. But in that case, like you're probably gonna have a druid or a shaman, so you can roar. And,
right.
But I will say that it's a cool idea for Mythic Plus, because holy shit, I would take that 100%. Like giving giving them a sprint also. Hey, I'm not gonna need this for any like damage reduction in the next 2 minutes, so I'm just gonna rip it for a sprint real quick.
Raw rip it.
Trash packs even, right?
Rip it raw.
This is another personal renewing blaze. Flames of life surround you for 8 seconds, healing you over 14 seconds for 100% of damage taken. So
this one's really interesting.
Go ahead, you can talk about it.
So I was just gonna say, it's like we were talking about during the pre-show. Anything that doesn't kill you outright, this could get you down to 1 HP, and then over the next 14 seconds, you're gonna just heal yourself to full because you've taken that damage in the previous 8 seconds. It's gonna heal you right up.
Yeah.
Which is just bananas, and it's on a short CD too, isn't it? It's
1.5. Yeah, 90 second.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but really over 14 seconds, like that's. I wouldn't say that's any more powerful than like Gift of the Naru, like the Draenei.
It's like a worse.
Racial.
It's also
So
like a
I
worse.
I would love that. That would be a really good, but I wouldn't think that it's like OP. That's just a solid.
It's like a worse alter time.
Solid pick, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't prevent any damage from hitting you or anything. All it does is just heal up the damage you took in the previous 8 seconds.
Right, but it's just like it's a massive hot that you put on yourself for 14 seconds because like
it's huge.
Obviously, if you get taken to 1 health, your next damage event would kill you. Like
right, so you're kind of hosed. If something happens right afterwards.
Right. But this is huge for just self healing. Like in raid, you can like you get taken down to 20%. You know, there's no more damage. Like. I mean, it would take a lot of coordination. Be like, healers, don't worry about me. Like, I'll heal up over the next, 14 seconds, or at least I'll have a big hot. Like, you can just off heal me or whatever, or let me passively heal off of AOE heals. All right, the big one that we can talk about that's gonna piss off literally everybody all the time is Fly With Me, and on its own, it's really not that great. So you swoop to an ally. So the way that it works is you click the ally that you're going to swoop, and then you get to select 30 yards away, the only 30-yard talent that they have, and you put a reticle down. So you move from where you are to the ally, and then from that spot to where you put the reticle down.
I honestly, by itself, that's pretty fucking good.
Oh, except everybody's just going to use it to troll.
Right. When it's used as it should be, that is so good. Just think about like Jailer, poor fucking Jason trying to just waddle his DK over to the pillars, and I'd just be like, "I got you, bro." Whoop.
Like if you got a wheelchair,
take him there. Like there's so many things like that is so good by itself.
Yeah.
The thing that's gonna
when it's used for good, it's used for evil.
And you say by itself, the thing that's going to make this really worth it is going to be the talent that goes along with it that gives you the
right. Well, I think that just enhances an already fucking dope ass button.
Yeah,
like that's what I mean. Like I think even by itself, if you don't talent into any extra shit with it, that's already a super cool button.
So the thing that just makes this absolutely busted is this talent right below called Twin Guardian. Fly With Me gives you and the ally that you select a 30% damage absorb for your max health. So, and they'll probably be decent health. They are mail wearers, so
that doesn't really have anything to do with health.
Or I'm thinking armor for some reason, but their health should be it should be a decent sized absorb shield.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing on Alpha right now something like level 70 Evokers have 100k ish health, and that's in like green quest gear and shit, maybe some early dungeon gear.
Right.
So I would imagine that by the time we get into the first raid, we'll be sitting at between 150 and 130,000 health.
Yeah, so you're gonna like a 45k damage shield.
Yeah, and that sounds a lot right now, right? Because we're still in Shadowlands. But even then, 30% is going to be significant, I think, no matter what.
And there is some synergy. So good. There's some synergy with this talent point here. You get a 4% stamina increase for two talent points in the class tree. So you do get a little bit of extra shielding if you take that. So that's most of their utility. There's a little bit in each of the trees. We can talk about the big one, and then probably move on a little bit, kind of talk about like damage profiles and what they bring to raid. But for preservation, there's this talent called Rewind. Bay touched on it a little bit. So essentially what it does, it's raid wide, has a 40-yard range, and 50% of damage taken in the last 5 seconds to all allies within 40 yards always heals for at least 160% of spell power. So yeah, 50% of the damage taken by you in the last 5 seconds gets healed back up. And it's raid wide. So, and it's cheap. It's 5% base mana. You can give it 2 charges if you want with a talent, but it reduces the percentage from 50 to 25%, or you can just straight reduce the cooldown to a 3-minute cooldown. The other really cool thing is when you're in Mythic Plus, this healing is changed to 100% of the damage you take over 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Which makes this button unbelievable.
So I disagree. Like it's a good button, but it's not anything crazy.
It could be a party-wide lay on hands. Like it could potentially heal everybody.
Because it's your last
for 50%. Like at most,
Plus it'll heal everything though. Up to it doubles. It's up to 100%.
Oh right, you're right.
Yeah, and it's.
But, I mean,
like it's gonna have to be coordinated with damage events, obviously, because it's only over the last 5 seconds.
Right, so it's gonna be super reactive. Like if you take a giant chunk of damage, you've got 5 seconds to react to it.
Yeah.
I just like I don't think in practice, I don't think it's that much better than Revival. And I mean, we all know Revival is kind of
I mean, like Revival's cool just because of the dispel on it. But
I think the cool part is like on things that have like the 4-hit for Jailer, the 4-hit slam, like so that happens in less than 5 seconds, and the tanks get healed in between, but you're still gonna then pop off that last hit a massive heal to everybody, because they're still, even though everybody's still getting healed up, that last one that chunks everybody down, everybody just gets healed back up over that last 5-second damage event.
Right, so despite having already been healed, that damage happened already. So it doesn't matter that the damage has been healed already. You've still taken it over the previous 5 seconds.
Exactly.
So it could be just enormous.
My only point though is that in that case that you just spoke, it's not going to heal more than Revival would in that sequence. You know what I mean? Like,
but
Revival's going to top everybody because no one's getting chunked down to less than 60% health from that whole sequence, like over the healing that's been going on through that course.
I just think the thing that makes it slightly better,
I think it has the opportunity to be insane. Like everybody gets chunked down to 1% HP, and you're like, oh, rewind, and then like, holy shit, that's a ton.
Well, I think the thing that makes it stronger, slightly stronger than Revival, is like Revival's a one-time healing event. Like this, like so you're that first chunk you revive, everybody goes back up, but then you still have like the couple extra hits after. This is just taking all that damage and then releasing it at the end of that 5 seconds. So even though everybody got healed,
no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
the way this works isn't you don't press it and you do healing 5 seconds, like over 5 seconds. This is you press it and all the damage that happened in the 5 seconds before you press
you're right.
It works like Death Strike.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. Like at most, like in a raid setting, at most, it will only heal for 50% of everybody's
the
HP.
Prior, right.
Yeah, and that's only if somebody gets chunked from 100% down to 1 health, it's gonna heal them for 50% of their HP. Which
that's not necessarily true.
Really, that's not that. I mean,
you could take a ton of damage, get it healed up, and then take more damage if it's within that 5 second window.
Right. Okay.
It depends on how much damage.
You're right.
Not how much health you have left. Right.
Right. So if somebody gets taken from 100% to 1, and then somebody lay on hands them to 100, and then they get hit down to 1 again, then you could press rewind and it'll heal them to 100.
Right. Exactly. It would be another lay on hands.
Right.
Yeah. So it has the potential to be like a gigantic heal.
Yeah, that's true.
I do think it's better in Mythic Plus than it is going to be in Raid, just because it's 100% of damage, the last 5 seconds worth of damage taken.
Yeah, the 4-minute recharge is,
you're gonna take the 60-second reduced cooldown on it, most likely, depending on fight timings. Like if there was only a massive damage event like every 4 minutes, you could just skip this talent. But I don't know many fights that are really like that. Mythic Plus, you may even take the 2 charge thing and reduce it by 50%, because then the 100% healing goes back to just the normal 50%, and then you just have 2 charges of it.
And you just rip him as shits.
Yeah. Time dilation, also good for, it basically gives like a on-demand stagger for the next 8 seconds, causing 50% of the damage they would take to instead be dealt over 8 seconds. So you basically just give a target stagger, which is pretty cool. And it's only on a 1 minute cooldown.
Super good.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's so good for tanks. Like, we got this one-shot mechanic here. Let's just make this super easy to heal.
Yeah.
The other stuff that they have kind of is like actual build stuff. So that's really all the utility. Devastation just is all throughput options for the most part in here. So the one thing that I think is going to make preservation really good and in Raid, and I know we're talking a lot about preservation because I think this, if you were going to only bring one, I think you probably bring a preservation over devastation right now, just because the cooldowns are so strong.
Depends on tuning. Like they don't have a specific like, hey, we bring this magic damage taken buff or whatever. Like they don't have a major raid buff.
They have one, but it's just not that great.
Right.
It's not super frequent. What does it do? Doesn't it reduce the cooldown of your movement abilities?
Movement abilities,
yeah.
But like they're probably going to be taken anyway. They're probably going to be stacked just because it depends on tuning.
Yeah, tuning aside, I think if you had to pick between the two, like you were forced, I can only take one Evoker. Like you'd probably pick preservation to take just because of the extra like really good externals that they've got here. The one thing though with preservation that I think makes them that much better is their damage profile is crazy. So this is a little talent buildy, but so in their class tree, or in the class tree, there's a talent here called Scarlet Adaptation. You store 20% of your effective healing up to some multiplier that isn't finalized yet. And then your next living flame consumes all that stored healing to increase the damage dealt. And then there is this talent, which kind of ties into what I'm going to talk about next. Blast Furnace increases Fire Breath's instant damage. And then there's this talent point here called Leaping Flames. And that makes your Fire Breath cause your next living flame to strike one additional target per empower level. So Fire Breath, you can charge with a talent up to 5. So you strike 5 additional targets. The cool thing about how this works, though, is if you guys have played Monk and you know the little bouncy chi ball that like selects random enemies or friends, chi wave, not wave, the ball one. Is that chi wave? What's the other one? Chi burst
is the other one.
Okay, yeah, so chi wave. So if there's only a single enemy, like a boss, and you use this, your living flame will then hit 5 allies with this 20% buffed healing. Because it does not, it basically casts duplicates of your living flame right now. It doesn't, the bonus healing is affected to all the other living waves as well, not just the initial main cast. So it makes their I'll call it cleave healing, like insane, like because it's a single target spell that then cleaves 5 additional targets.
It's probably something I'm super interested in, just because I love like playing Venthyr Elisham. I'm just doing stupid amounts of healing. Yeah, like I'm elemental, but I've got Riptides on the whole group.
Yeah. So I do like, and it feels like Blizzard for the most part is kind of giving healers options for damage that like make sense with their healing, because most healers, or at least there's a skill gap in healers that like don't heal and or don't damage and just heal, but like the best healers are also doing damage outside of, you know, Disc, that's how they do their healing, or Monk that's right. Like right now how they do their best healing. But like the other healers, like, you know, you play Shaman, you throw a Flame Shock, how many times do you see healers just like sit with their proc for a free Lava Burst and they just never use it? Right. Like, you know, and I think that's not really anything that Blizzard's addressed, but I think with the talent system and some of these synergies, they're like really enforcing the play style of like, hey, healers can do damage too. And we're encouraging you because there's also another talent in here that makes your Flame Breath also heal for the damage that it does, or a percentage of the damage that it does. So like your 2 of your spells directly do damage and also do healing for you.
Yeah. And I think that's great. Like, even if it's not, it doesn't have to be a baseline thing or something that you have to pick, but having that option, because Shaman is one where, like, you know, obviously Holy Pally, they're in there doing damage, so they need to be like tuned down to where they're not doing so much just because they're going to be doing damage in order to heal. With a Shaman, like, I don't have to press Flame Shock and Lava Burst to heal. Then I have the option of Vesper Totem, where I can do both, and like me pressing my damage abilities is leading me up to like a burst of healing from the Vesper. So like just having the options to be able to play that way is super good.
Yeah, I mean,
I think they should continue down that road. And
go ahead, Bay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the inverse is also true, where you've got healing coming from the Devastation Evokers also. Because just by virtue of the Evoker tree itself being the way it is, you've got Rescue, you've got things like Scarlet Adaptation, which works with Rescue, right? You've got your
Emerald Blossom,
your Bloom, the Emerald Blossom, Cauterizing Flame, right? Like all of these utility things that Preservation Evokers are probably going to take. You can also take as a Devastation Evoker, and I think especially in 5-mans, it's going to be pretty.
I think I fucking love that, and Bay, you know that, you know how much I fucking love that shit. Like, I nerd the fuck out over like the amount of utility I can bring to our group. Just playing like Guidance, throwing down my healing streams and shit. Like, I fucking love that.
Yep.
I love to be multi-useful like that.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff I think that's going to really help towards like 15s and below Mythic Plus. Probably not going to matter a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
But once you start pushing, you know, low, mid, high 20s, it's going to really matter.
I think that shit like that is just so cool for skill expression.
I love it.
Like, the skill expression level is just awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel great at the end of the key where I'm like, all right, well, I did 15k overall and I did like fucking 4k overall healing from a DPS perspective. Like, that's dope. Like, how much I helped, or, you know, like, oh, we would have wiped here if I didn't have Guidance, and the skill expression and utility from that.
And that'll carry through into raids as well. Like, that's not only a Mythic Plus thing.
It's mostly a Mythic Plus thing, but yeah.
Well, but I guess we're talking about whether
it's so noticeable in 5-man content, I think.
Yeah, and we're talking about whether or not Evokers are going to have a raid spot, right? So I think Mythic Plus will be a separate discussion. But I really think that'll be super useful in raids as well.
Well, and what a piggy. The other cool thing is like this Leaping Flames talent that is super strong for Preservation Evoker. It's just part of the class tree, so you can take this, or you should be taking this as a Devastation as well, because especially if you do like a red build, like you're going to be casting Fire Breath all the time. And just doing free passive healing in single target situations to the rest of your party or raid. And from what I was watching, like if you have like 4, and you probably would never stack 4, but like if you have 4 Evokers all drop their Bloom at the same time in a dungeon, it's essentially a group lay on hands, because that's how strong Bloom is right now.
Right.
That's what they're doing right now, just because everybody wants to test it. So there's tons of Evokers everywhere.
Yeah. So I mean, if 4 of them equals basically 100% heal, I mean, that's a 25% heal individually. Yeah. So like there is a reason, like an incentive for you as a Devastation Evoker in raid or in Mythic Plus to be throwing your Bloom down like when needed. It's better than like a healing stream totem or like something like that, because it's so strong right now. It'll probably get tuned down, to be fair, but like it incentivizes DPS to play that off heal role.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
it
also
could be
think across like the middle of the player base, you're kind of just going to be forced to stack evokers because people are going to want to play them.
True.
And unless you're in a guild that's like, no, you can't play this because, like we talked about last week, I don't think that's ever going to be a thing. But go on, Bay, what were you trying to say?
I don't remember. Probably wasn't important.
The last thing I just wanted to talk about for Raid is just like the damage profile for Devastation. So they essentially have two builds. They've got red build, which is kind of the left side of the tree, and that's kind of their AoE, or it's supposed to be their like AoE focused build. It's really simple, flows really well. It's kind of undertuned, it seems like, at the moment. A couple of the skills like Firestorm need to be increased damage wise, and a couple of the talents aren't really working right now. The right side is the blue build, and that's kind of like your single target and cleave build. It's super strong right now. A little clunky because you have to empower multiple spells, and empowering at the moment like doesn't feel good, especially this right here, Eternity Surge. Like, it empowering it just makes it hit more enemies. It doesn't make it do more damage.
Yep.
But the way that like Tyranny and Scintillation and stuff play, you always want to be fully empowering. So even in single target, you would empower this and it doesn't do anything else in single target. You're just wasting.
That's not gonna feel good.
Yeah. So there are some
and
some
I
issues.
feel like you can just play around that. I think that's something that, I mean, unless it's 5%, there's always going to be some like weird thing that doesn't feel super good, but the best players are going to be able to squeeze an extra 5% out of it.
Yeah. And I think like for Raid, like they're going to be really strong on single target and like basically 4 target cleave type situations, like sustained 4 target ish cleave. The red build will probably be like the Mythic Plus build. You probably won't see it right now too much in Raid.
Well, one thing that I liked watching some gameplay is that like the red build and the blue build are so different that like the red build's not even necessarily like your Mythic Plus. It's more like your consistent AoE build versus like you could set up like a bursty AoE build. And I think just changing the damage profiles of your spec based on the build you take, I think this is a really cool approach to that.
So the one thing
I think you can do both with either build. You can just like do those like single target or AoE, but just in a different way. Damage profile.
Yeah, blue can still AoE. It's just more bursty, to your point. And then red.
Yeah, sorry,
red,
I'm probably mixing that up.
Yeah.
I know that one is more consistent, one's more bursty, whatever.
Yeah, red is more like sustained AoE type stuff. So a couple things that I think are cool is they actually have 2 builders. They have Azure Strike as a builder, and then Living Flame is also a builder. And depending on how you are, and Disintegration is also a builder, I believe.
I think Disintegration's a spender.
Or that's a spender. Yeah, so Living Flame is like your red builder and Azure Strike is like your blue builder. I think it's cool that like you may not press one or the other. Living Flame's a little overtuned right now, so like you want to be using Living Flame even as a blue build. But I think it's cool that they have, to your point, like 2 very different damage profiles with a different builder for each. But I do think there's some potential for like a hybrid purple build.
I was about to say even like mix and matching. Yeah.
The problem right now is there's no synergy between the sides. They need to add a node that like when you cast a red spell or 2 red spells, your next blue spell is empowered.
Right. Yeah. Like with druids, right?
Yeah.
Well, and especially looking at the way that this tree is set up, like make not necessarily the very middle, but the ones to the right of those, make those like a very hybrid, like so when you cross over you can take those, and it just kind of gives you a reason to be using both sides.
Right. Yeah, it's super obvious that they meant for these to be separate, just because like underneath Pyre, the first 2 talents you have are Ruby Essence Burst and Azure Essence Burst.
Yep.
They do the exact same thing. They give you Essence Burst for Disintegrate, Pyre, and Charge Blast. but from using different color spells.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
left
pretty
side
obvious
is
that they're trying to separate those.
Yep, the left side's your Living Flame spend or builder, and then the right side's your Azure Strike builder. The blue build is actually a little bit more mobile because Azure Strike you can cast and move, and the red build you do have to plant a little bit more. So I think that's really cool. And I don't know if you knew what their mastery did Hakkd, but they essentially
a little weird.
It's reverse execute. It's
yeah, I don't care for it.
More damage the higher the target's health is, which is gonna make
openers are gonna be bonkers,
and it's gonna make 5-minute sims ridiculous. Like
well, they have something in there, right, to where they can like I think it's a cooldown. They can make their mastery at full value.
So if you spec into Ruin, which
it's
is
right here,
just above your bottom middle keystone, so using Dragon Rage will let you use your full mastery.
And that's like a 2-minute cooldown.
Dragon Rage, something like that.
It's 2 minutes, and you're always going to take Dragon Rage. It's dead center of the tree, and both.
But the thing I don't like about that though is the Ruin talent, at least, is it's not going to further incentivize you to pop Dragon Rage at the beginning of a fight because it's not going to add any damage to your mastery to it.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll make a lot more sense as you get further into a fight and have less health on the target.
I think
then it's not super useful.
Yeah, I think without that caveat, like I think that would be a really cool idea of just like I'm gonna stack mastery. My opener is gonna be fucking bonkers, and then this is gonna be my execute of just like fully utilizing my super stacked mastery during my like third use of my 2-minute.
I think it'd be cool if this Ruin talent, or maybe even it was built into Dragon Rage, where like when you pop it, it also gives you a little bit of a mastery bump, so that it felt better to pop it on, because you're still going to pop it on your open, because you do get 3 free pyres, and then you get 14 seconds of essence burst, which is just basically your clear casting for your spenders. So like it
just makes them free. I don't think
makes them instant, right? Makes them free. Yeah. Clear cast, but not instant clear cast. So you're going to pop it regardless, but you're not getting any additional benefit from Ruin, and you're kind of also always taking Ruin, it seems like, right now. So this tree probably needs to be reworked, and but I do think they have 2 individual damage profiles for raid, which I think is cool, and you'll be using them in different situations as well. But if they added any nodes to this, it would definitely be like a purple build node. I think would be really cool.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Because I think that'd be a third play style, right? Like you then get like a druidy Eclipse style, and you could make it a little bit different, because Eclipse you build towards. Like you could either make yourself, you have to alternate every spell, or like 2 reds empower 1 blue, or 2 blues empower 1 red. Like you could change, you could make it different enough from Eclipse that it feels not samey, So but then you'd have 3 very unique play styles for 1 class. And I think not only is it a new class, and that should be kind of the case, but like it's a hero class. It should have all the new cool stuff and like multiple play styles and that sort of thing. So
and it kind of does, like with the empowered spells, right? You have to hold and then release. We haven't seen that in WoW yet, so that's super new. All of the flying and traveling and doing damage before you land is super new.
Also the 25-yard range.
25-yard range. Very, very new. So I like, as a hero class, or as a new, I don't know if they're technically a hero class. I think they are, because they start off at level 58.
They are.
But they're bringing a ton of really cool stuff, and I really hope that a lot of that starts to carry over to some other classes. Yeah.
I would like to see mages get empowered spells. I think they make the most sense of anybody right now, but I think you could make it like work thematically with like, okay, warrior, you hold down Colossus Smash.
Exactly.
Like it's a huge
I'm already
slam.
Thinking like you hold down Blizzard, and just the longer you hold it down,
like the AoE,
it increases the radius.
Yep.
Oh, dude, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
That way, if you just have everything like pixel stacked and you have a nice stack, you just fucking instant cast that shit, get it down.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're just like, okay, this one's at the edge, so I'm gonna let it grow a little bit more, so it's
Right.
hitting
Yeah,
everything.
like it's not going to ruin your day if your tank has to kite out
Yeah,
of.
like
Yeah.
Well, I
yeah,
think
that
that's
would be super cool.
that's the intention with like Eternity Surge, right? Okay, you want to do single target, you just tap it. You want to do cleave, you hold it. The problem is that the talents that are the best for this build encourage you to always fully charge because you get cooldown reduction.
I think that's okay though. Like, there's always going to be something that, like, when you're trying to fully min max, there's going to be some weird thing that doesn't feel the best.
Anti synergistic type talents.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
Very rarely is the best spec or like best build for a spec the one that is the most fun to play.
That's
so very rarely is that the case.
That's true. There were some like demo builds that I wanted to play on Warlock that were not optimal at all.
Right.
Like, I just want to play Bioscourge Bombers. Let me throw bats at things, please. But it's like just a trash talent. So
yeah.
But yeah, I could definitely see them adding the Empower thing, and I think they should. Like, it makes sense for Dragon because of the breaths, but like, I think it would make sense on almost every class to have. Maybe
There's
not
tons
like
of things you can wind up. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense on Warrior. I think it makes sense on DK. I don't know if it makes sense on Rogue so much, but definitely Mage.
And it doesn't have to make sense with everything, right?
Right.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Let's slowly introduce them.
Also, to the 25-yard range thing, like, just based on encounter design, I think if they can make something that's interesting enough that, like, oh, now you do have to worry about your mid-range camp or something, I think there's tons of specs that make sense to be mid-ranged, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, to your point, like, BM would be a perfect candidate to be a 25.
Outlaw Rogue, even, you could...
I would even settle if they, like, sat in the middle and gave us, like, a 32-yard range, you know? Like, at least so you could reach the tip of the melee if you were standing with the ranged, and you could reach the ranged if you were, you know, not pixel stacked with the melee. Like, so you're not forced to kind of play in no man's land in between the two camps.
It's gonna feel so bad at first though, because I feel it all the time with my wind shear on the shaman. When I'm playing at 40-yard range and I want to kick something, I'm like, why can't I kick? Because it's only a 30-yard range.
Yeah,
like,
I got to take a couple steps
move
forward
in to kick. I think it's only for resto, maybe. I don't remember.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
There's
I think
something like that feels weird though.
I mean, it doesn't ever feel weird on enhanced because you're always within 30 yards.
Yeah,
but I do think the 25-yard range is going to affect Mythic Plus more than people think, because like your range still wants to stand far away so they don't have to deal with mechanics, and I think it's going to take some adjustment period. To your point, I think we'll all figure out how to play around it at some point if they don't make a change.
So
I think a little bit, but like just off the top of my head, I generally prefer to play mid-ranged in Mythic Plus already.
Yeah,
so I think like I'll adapt to that setting easily.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. Hey, hunters and mages, can you scooch in just a little bit so I can heal you? Like, all right. I think that covered everything I want to talk about for myself. I think, did you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
I mean, did we answer the question of whether or not they're guaranteed a raid spot?
Outside of tuning, I think they bring enough utility that you will have one at minimum.
And you think it'll be a preservation?
I think if you had to pick between the two, it would be preservation. I think Devastation's awesome, and I love the 2 damage profiles. I don't think that they bring anything that different that like you have to bring a Devastation evoker. Like, you're not like,
again, outside of tuning.
Tuning is a whole different thing, right? If they do just 10% more damage than everybody, you're gonna bring a fuckload of them. But like, tuning aside, like, it's not like they bring this like massive raid cooldown, or like Ass Rogue bringing just 3% damage reduction to bosses. Like, there's not a reason to bring them. That's why I think preservation, specifically with these 2 talents, is your reason to bring them. It does something that no other class does. I mean, this is kind of samey to revival.
I still disagree that rewind is that crazy that like that would make you bring one. I just don't think that
not only
that.
you get the
crazy different from anything else.
You get the Kirkland brand revival, but then you get time dilation, which literally nobody else brings, which is just on-demand stagger.
No, other things, yes.
Yeah.
That I just don't think, like, by itself, I don't think it's different enough or like that insane enough that you would need to bring it for that button.
Yeah. But I think that if I think they are guaranteed a raid spot. I think the other like class utility stuff, if you didn't want to bring a preservation one for whatever reason, like you would just force your devastation to grab some of these awesome like raid utility type things.
Yep. Yeah. I was a hard yes before I started doing prep for the show tonight. Now I'm a hard probably.
What, for healing on one?
No, for them like being guaranteed a raid spot.
Oh, right.
Particularly, I guess, world first and top 10, I guess, are the only ones that really matter.
Because everybody else is just going to be forced to, like, Evokers are going to be a guaranteed raid spot because all the people that you play with are going to want to play them.
Oh yeah, like for us,
you're going to have some friends that are playing them. Like our raid will have Evokers in them because I'm playing one. Rain is already playing one. Yeah. I'm sure we have some others that are going to be playing them.
I kind of want to try healing on one just to see what it's like.
Right. Yeah, I think it'll be cool.
But I'm also not super keen on leveling a bunch of characters right at the beginning of an expansion either.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I usually do 2 pretty quick already, so I mean, I'll probably do Evoker and Shaman.
So you're a maybe now, Bay? Well, I'm just curious on your
probably. Raid spot.
What's holding you back from bringing either?
Well, it doesn't necessarily seem to me like. So the cool thing about Evokers is that their utility all comes from a single class, right? Whereas if you wanted something like Rewind, you would have to bring a monk. If you wanted something like, I guess, Time Dilation, which is a stagger, but no other healer is going to give a stagger. But something like a DR, right? You would probably bring a priest or a paladin or something. But for Evokers, it's all in just a single character, which is great. But at the same time, I don't think you would necessarily need one because you can get those things from different classes.
Yeah.
Well, even Time Dilation, right? Like, yeah, it's a stagger, so it's different. But as far as the actual practical use, is it that much different from Ironbark? So I still think that there's an argument there. Like, you can still bring any other class that just has a really nice 1 minute external CD, and it's not really that different.
Right, and you're not reducing the damage taken; you're just slowing it down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which and that's what I mean. Like, so you're slowing it down, so it's easier to heal, or you could just reduce it, and it's easier to heal. So that's what I mean. Like, in practice, is it really that different? So, okay, could I just bring a druid to get this?
Well, it's the same thing with like Time Spiral. Like, do you need another off movement or off CD movement ability? Like, it's super.
Probably not.
It's super fight dependent, and like for Zephyr, like it's nice that you get the AOE reduction, but like it's only for your party, so you can just bring a roar for.
Well, so I do think that Time Spiral, I think that is like cool and different enough that there might be something that you would want that for specifically, like, because I'm just thinking of Gahoon. Like, dude, Zephyr would be insane for your warriors,
right?
Like, where you would specifically, you wouldn't want another group-wide sprint or anything. You would want to just let the warriors use their heroic leap again, because like Gahoon had that thing they could like triple leap up to deal with like the ramp mechanics on the sides. So it's like there are things like that. So I think that is really cool. Just that's a new form of like raid-wide movement CD, just giving them their movement CD.
Yeah.
So like there are things that are definitely cool, and I think that there are some niche uses with some of the stuff, even Rewind and what we were just talking about. But
I mean, I think that like, the best talent or the best thing that they bring is Source of Magic. I think you're going to bring one just for that, just for the mana. Just especially on progression when mana becomes an issue, like you're gonna want one just to give one of your healers. Like I said, I think the people much smarter than us mathed it out. It's like 8% back per minute.
And that's awesome too, even if you just have one. And it's like, okay, well, like in our case with our raid, it's like, okay, well, we're giving Bay our Source of Magic because the other fucking healers steal all the innervates. So like Bay gets this. So like in that way.
So,
and like
an
nothing
answer
says
for
you have to
everybody.
leave it on somebody the entire fight either. It looks like you can
That
just
too.
move it to somebody who's low mana,
Yeah.
pop it on them, and then start popping off with empowered spells.
Yeah. So I think you're bringing. I'm in the camp that you are bringing one almost regardless of tuning, unless it's like absolute dumpster tier, like that. And they won't. I don't think they'll let that happen because it's the hero class. It's not going to be trash. Yeah. Sure. So like I think you're bringing at least one guaranteed just for Source of Magic, just to give your healers. I mean, over the course of a 5-minute fight, like that's 42% or 43% mana back, or whatever that math works out to. 40% mana back. 8 times 5, 40.
40. I knew we'd get there.
We get there. So you get 40% mana back over the course of a fight. That's insane. Like, that's a healer and a half worth of this casting. So, Hakkd, what's your, regardless of tuning and regardless of everybody playing them, if you were putting together like a mythic comp that needed to select specs, are you bringing one as a locked in spot?
Oh yeah, I'm bringing at least one. I don't think that it necessarily needs to be preservation, like if I were picking between the two. And so obviously, again, depending on tuning, but I just mean tuning in the case of like like, okay, am I bringing a Windwalker versus a Mistweaver versus a Brewmaster for that buff?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, okay, well, our Devastation doing decent. Okay, we can bring that,
Yeah.
But I think you're bringing at least one. I only disagree that if you had to pick between the two outside of like 10% plus like tuning difference on devastation damage, like I think you would just pick whichever. I don't think preservation is that much better, but I do think you're bringing one at least. I just don't think the spec matters.
I also think it's going to depend obviously on like the other healers' talent trees, like
right.
We haven't really seen a whole lot of
we haven't seen them all yet.
True.
So there may be a case where like this stuff's really cool, but like maybe Revival gets a massive buff and now like this rewind talent gets reduced in value because now Revival is just disgustingly good. So like, okay, well then I'll bring my Devastation Evoker because I'm going to bring a Mistweaver Monk for the better version of Revival.
Mistweaver so badly needs a damage reduction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So badly.
It should be tied to Revival, I think.
It should be, yeah. Just like, hey, heal everybody for a fuck ton, get rid of like their shit, and give them. It doesn't even have to be a lot.
10%.
No.
It could be 10%. Yeah. It could be 10% for.
Yeah, just something would be nice.
Yeah, something.
Because it's just like it's a great snaps. I know we're gonna kind of spiral for a second here. It's a great snap healings spell, but like it doesn't stabilize you if there's continuous damage events. It just helps you get like be mana efficient during it because the rest of your healers don't have to pump as hard. But like if you get spiked again, you're just back in the same situation you were 1 GCD ago.
Exactly. And it's got like a very specific utility like Anduin, where it's just, and it's not even like it doesn't actually do anything, but it's kind of just more comfortable because like, okay, well, we knocked out this barrier that we need to heal through, so now we're just like chilling for 5 seconds. We know we have to spread, but it's not like a rushed thing. So it's got those like utility things, but it's mostly like comfort. It's not actually like super useful. It just feels good.
Yeah, it's great for bursting weeks, and it's really good on like Stradama in Plaguefall, right? To get rid of the infectious rain. But
it's either like a power level 2 or like a power level 8. And like it's not, there's no in between on how good Revival is.
Because like just adding like a percent DR, low percent doesn't. It's the same as like Resto Shaman. Can anybody tell me? Can anybody tell me what their damage reduction is?
No, I have no idea. Not off the top of my head.
Spirit Link.
Oh, I thought you meant
DR.
I thought you meant the. Okay, yeah.
No, sorry. Like raid wide.
Yeah.
It's Spirit Link. So it's like, why is that much different? Adding a 10% DR to that, it's already so fucking powerful without without that. So just add it to Revival. There you go.
Yeah, but that piddly 10% is good.
Yes,
Still
that's all.
10%.
You know?
At least you have a DR. You know.
Yeah.
At least you can say you have one when you're begging for a raid spot.
Right, exactly.
I bring DR, I swear.
I swear I do.
Yeah. Just people have to stand in it. All right. Yeah. I think this was good. I am very excited to get my hands on Evoker. I really want to play. So Blizzard, if you're watching, give me a alpha key, please. I beg of you. Bay, Lost Colony, thank you for being our guest and chatting about Evokers with us. Hakkd, thanks for cutting your vacation short just so you could come talk with me.
Oh yeah, I did it just for you. Damn, I really need to go home.
Everybody who was hanging out in the chat, thank you for being here. And we will catch y'all on the next one. Peace.
See you guys.
Peace out.